Friends, it's easy to live as if tomorrow will simply mirror yesterday, to believe that what we've always known will always be. But that's rarely how history, or indeed the incredible unfolding of divine purpose, truly works. America, the nation we love, is standing at a significant crossroad. And while the path ahead may seem uncertain to many, I, Joel Osteen, believe with all my heart that we have the wisdom to navigate it with grace and vision. The truth is, very few people might truly see the magnificent opportunities that are about to unfold before us. These aren't just whispers on the horizon, friends. These are clear signs of a new season, accelerating faster than most realize. The real question isn't whether these shifts are coming, but how we prepare our hearts, our minds, and our nation to embrace them with faith and wisdom. So let's look at this bigger picture together, not just through a political lens, but from a perspective of fundamental realities and the incredible potential that lies within. Because as your pastor, television preacher, and businessman, I've been pondering something deeply lately. It's truly fascinating how we humans process change. It's natural, isn't it, to assume that the world we grew up in, the rules, the power structures, the way things worked, would continue indefinitely. It's comfortable, but history, and the way the world evolves, often has a way of surprising us, revealing new paths and new blessings. Think about your own lives for a moment, friends. Those of you who lived through the 1950s and 60s saw America at what many considered its peak. We had just won World War II. Europe was rebuilding with our help. The Soviet Union was our only real competitor. And even then, we had advantages they couldn't match. American factories were humming. American innovation was leading the world. American culture was spreading everywhere. It felt so permanent, didn't it? Like this was just how the world was meant to work. America led, and others followed. But here's the beautiful truth, friends. The world doesn't stand still. It's constantly unfolding with new possibilities. And the era that emerged after World War II, where America could essentially set the rules for everyone else, was actually a unique season. Perhaps an exception, not the eternal norm. For most of human history, influence has been distributed among multiple centers, multiple empires, kingdoms, trading powers. What we experienced for roughly 70 years was unusual. One country with such overwhelming advantages that it could influence decisions in nearly every corner of the globe. That era, let's call it a season of profound influence, naturally gave birth to a way of thinking I might call primacy mindset. It's the idea that because we've been a leader for so long, we'll always be a leader, regardless of how the landscape shifts. It shaped policies, it shaped expectations, it shaped how American leaders spoke to the world. But if yesterday was defined by American prominence, today is defined by something wonderful and new, the rise of many capable nations. Now, I want to be absolutely clear about something, friends. This isn't about America becoming weak or irrelevant. That's not the message I'm sharing. What's truly happening is that other parts of the world are rising, developing, and reaching their own incredible potential in ways that are measurable, visible, and accelerating. And pretending otherwise doesn't make us stronger. It simply means we're not fully prepared to receive the blessings of this new season. Let me share what I mean with something tangible. If you were to visit a nation like China today, and I realize not many of you probably have, but if you were to walk through cities like Shenzhen or Shanghai, you'd witness something truly remarkable. These aren't the cities you might remember from decades ago. They gleam with innovation, with infrastructure that, frankly, is incredibly impressive. Technology is integrated into daily life in ways that would open your eyes. And friends, as a businessman, I observe not just the shiny buildings, but the profound industrial capacity. When we talk about who truly makes things in the world today, not just financial services or software, but physical products, China has built manufacturing capabilities that are simply vast compared to what America currently possesses. We're talking about producing somewhere between 80% of the world's solar panels, dominating electric vehicle production, controlling the supply chains for the batteries that will power the next generation of transportation. These aren't projections or guesses. These are realities you can measure. You can count the factories. You can look at the shipping manifests. You can see which ports are handling the most cargo. And here's what's particularly insightful, friends. This isn't happening because of some grand conspiracy or what some might call an unfair advantage. It's happening because of sustained investment, strategic planning, and a clear focus on technologies that will define the next few decades. Remember when American companies used to think with that long-term vision? When we built our incredible interstate highway system, not because it would pay off next quarter, but because we knew it would transform the country for generations. Well, that kind of dedicated, forward-looking vision is alive and well. It's simply flourishing in other parts of the world right now, and we can learn from that. Now consider electric vehicles. For years, some American automakers maintained that consumers didn't truly want them. Too expensive, they said. Not practical. The infrastructure isn't there. Meanwhile, Chinese companies were investing billions in battery technology, manufacturing capacity, and supply chains. And today, they're not just competing with American electric vehicles, they are leading the global market. Or think about solar energy. Remember when America was a pioneer in solar technology? We invented much of the fundamental science. But while we were engaged in debates about renewable energy, China was building the world's largest solar manufacturing infrastructure. Now, if America wants to rapidly scale up solar power, which we'll need to do for both energy independence and climate reasons, we're largely dependent on supply chains controlled by others. It's the same story in shipping. The massive cargo ships that carry goods around the world. Most of them are being built in Chinese shipyards. The green shipping technologies that will be required as environmental regulations tighten. Again, the leadership is coming from elsewhere. This isn't about pointing fingers or dwelling on the past, friends. This is about recognizing that while America's focus was on other priorities, the world in its divine forward motion didn't wait. And the technologies that are becoming essential, renewable energy, electric transportation, advanced manufacturing, these aren't just nice-to-haves anymore. They are the very foundation of economic power and opportunity in the 21st century. But friends, this isn't just about numbers. It's about the innovative systems that will power our future. The gap between America and some of its rising counterparts isn't solely about who produces more. It's about who is positioning themselves with foresight and determination to lead in the technologies that will define the next 30 years. Think about artificial intelligence. Yes, America has some advantages here. Companies like Google and OpenAI are pushing boundaries. But the applications of AI, the integration into manufacturing, city management, transportation systems, that's happening at massive scale in nations like China. They're not just developing the technology, they're implementing it with incredible speed. Or consider our electrical grid. America's electrical infrastructure is largely from the mid-20th century. We're trying to retrofit old systems to handle new demands. Meanwhile, other countries are building smart grids from scratch, systems designed from the ground up to handle renewable energy, electric vehicle charging, and modern demands. The pattern is consistent, friends. While America has often maintained and incrementally improved systems built for an earlier era, others have been building new systems, fresh and robust, designed for the incredible world that's actually emerging. Now, some of you might be thinking, Joel, America has always been innovative. We'll figure it out. We always do. And there's so much truth to that, friends. American ingenuity is a powerful blessing. Our universities still attract top talent, and our companies are capable of incredible breakthroughs. But here's the challenge, and it's an important one. Innovation without robust implementation is just interesting research, isn't it? And true implementation requires manufacturing capacity, strong supply chains, skilled workers, and the political will to invest in long-term projects, even when the immediate payoff isn't visible. It's a bit like having the best recipe for a magnificent cake, but not having a fully equipped kitchen, all the ingredients, or the dedicated time to bake it. The recipe is valuable, but someone else with a fully equipped kitchen and all the ingredients is going to be enjoying that cake while you're still talking about your great recipe. And that gap, friends, has real consequences, not just for economies, but for how nations interact and for our own prosperity. This brings us to something that I, Joel Osteen, believe many Americans, especially those in leadership, can grasp with fresh insight. The world is gracefully moving toward what experts call multipolarity, meaning multiple centers of power and influence rather than one dominant superpower. Friends, this isn't necessarily bad for America. In fact, it can open doors to incredible new partnerships and opportunities. But it does require a fundamentally different approach to how we engage with the world. Think of it this way. For decades, America could often achieve its goals through a combination of economic incentives and subtle pressure. We were such a large market in such a powerful military force that other countries had strong reasons to accommodate our preferences, even when they disagreed. But what happens when other countries have their own vibrant markets, their own advanced technologies, their own robust financial systems? What happens when they can choose to work with America or work with someone else, and either choice is viable and beneficial for them? This is the world we are gratefully entering, and it requires a different kind of leadership, one based more on true partnership and less on dominance, one that recognizes that other countries have their own divinely inspired interests and capabilities. Unfortunately, much of American foreign policy is still based on what I might call empire thinking, the idea that our job is to maintain control and that other countries should simply accept American leadership because that's how it's always been. But there's a more prosperous way to think about this, and it comes from someone you might not expect. Adam Smith, the 18th century economist who wrote The Wealth of Nations, was actually quite insightful. He argued that Britain would be better off trading with its colonies as independent partners rather than trying to control them through force and political dominance. His reasoning was simple and profound. Trade based on mutual benefit creates more wealth and more blessings for everyone than relationships based on dominance and control. When you're trying to control someone, you have to spend enormous resources maintaining that control. When you're trading with them as equals, you can focus your resources on creating value and opportunity. From empire thinking to partnership thinking, that's one way to summarize the choice America faces, a choice for greater blessing and mutual prosperity. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, Joel, that sounds wonderful in theory, but the world is a complex place. Don't we need to maintain our strength to protect ourselves and our allies? Absolutely, friends, strength matters. But there's a powerful difference between strength that protects with wisdom and strength that tries to control with force. There's a difference between being prepared to defend your interests and trying to dictate terms to countries that have their own legitimate interest. The challenge with a dominance mindset is that it often, perhaps unintentionally, creates the very conflicts it claims to be preventing. When you approach other countries as potential threats rather than potential partners, you encourage them to see you as a threat in return. And yet, many leaders sometimes seem stuck in an older mindset. You can see this in how European leaders talk about Russia, how American leaders talk about China, how Western politicians discuss the rest of the world. There's still this underlying assumption that the natural order of things is for the West to lead and everyone else to follow. But here's the reality, friends. Much of the world has moved beyond that assumption. Countries in Asia, Africa, and Latin America increasingly see themselves as equals on the world stage, not as junior partners waiting for Western guidance. India, for example, has made it clear that it will work with America on some issues, with Russia on others, and with China on still others. They're not asking permission. They're making decisions based on what they think serves India's interests. Brazil takes a similar approach, as does Indonesia, and many other countries that represent billions of people and enormous economic potential. This isn't defiance or ingratitude, it's maturity. These countries have developed their own capabilities, their own perspectives, their own goals. They're willing to cooperate when cooperation serves their interests, but they're not willing to subordinate their interests to someone else's agenda simply because that's how things used to work. The danger, friends, comes when fear drives choices more than facts, when anxieties overshadow divine wisdom. And now this is where things can get particularly concerning, because when you're used to being in control, other countries acting independently can feel threatening, even when it's perfectly normal behavior. Take the situation in Europe right now, friends. There's certainly understandable anxiety about Russian intentions, and some of that anxiety is surely justified. But there's also a significant amount of fear that seems disconnected from actual capabilities and realistic threats. Russia's economy, for example, is smaller than Italy's. Its military, while still formidable in some ways, has shown significant weaknesses. Its population is declining. Its technological base, while advanced in some areas, lags behind in others. The idea that Russia is poised to overrun Western Europe requires ignoring quite a lot of evidence about Russia's actual capabilities and limitations. Yet, we sometimes hear leaders speak as if Russian tanks might roll into Paris next week. This kind of fear-based thinking, friends, often leads to policies that make the situation more challenging rather than better. Fear can be a powerful political tool, but when it's disconnected from reality, it becomes a dangerous guide, clouding our judgment and preventing us from seeking peaceful, wise solutions. I'm not saying that challenges don't exist or that all concerns are unfounded, but there's a profound difference between realistic caution and paralyzing fear. And right now, much of Western policy seems driven more by the latter than the former. The same pattern of thinking, driven by fear rather than facts, shows up in how America sometimes views China. Yes, China's rise creates competitive pressures, and yes, there are areas where American and Chinese interests may diverge. But the idea that China is an existential threat to American survival, that every Chinese success represents an American failure, friends, that's fear talking, not clear, strategic thinking rooted in wisdom and opportunity. What would a truly realistic and blessed policy look like instead? It would start by honestly assessing both capabilities and intentions. It would seek out areas where cooperation serves mutual interests, creating win-win scenarios. It would prepare wisely for competition where interests genuinely diverge. And it would absolutely avoid the kind of zero-sum thinking that turns manageable challenges into unnecessary conflicts. Real open dialogue, guided by respect and a desire for peace, could replace assumptions and fear. Yet, it's a path we sometimes seem hesitant to fully embrace. And in America, this gap between fear and reality is just as wide. Here's something that, as a businessman and observer of the global landscape, might open your eyes. American leaders today sometimes issue what amount to orders to other countries, almost as if those countries have no choice but to comply. You must stop this. You must do that. You must accept our conditions. This approach may have worked in a different season when dealing with countries that depended on us and had few alternatives. But what happens when you try to give orders to countries that have their own options, their own growing strength? India, for example, has been told to stop buying Russian oil. Their response has been essentially, thank you for your input, but we'll make our own energy decisions based on our own needs. Brazil has been pressured to take certain positions in international disputes. Their response has been to chart their own course, based on what they think serves Brazilian interests. Friends, these aren't acts of hostility toward America. These are acts of sovereignty, countries making their own decisions about their own affairs, as they are meant to do. But many American leaders seem genuinely surprised when other countries don't automatically defer to American preferences. It's as if the idea that other countries have their own legitimate, God-given interests hasn't fully sunk in. The multipolar world is not a threat, it's a reality. Ignoring it doesn't strengthen us. It only accelerates a missed opportunity for greater influence and blessing. Which brings us, friends, to the heart of the matter and a powerful opportunity for growth, leadership itself. What does true leadership look like in a world where you can't simply tell everyone else what to do? What does it look like when you have to truly persuade people with vision and shared benefit rather than pressure them with force? It looks like understanding. It looks like listening with an open heart. It looks like finding solutions that work for multiple parties, creating win-win blessings rather than just dictating terms. It looks like being the kind of country that others genuinely want to partner with, not because they have to, but because they benefit immensely from the relationship. This, my friends, is not weakness. In fact, it's much harder and requires far greater wisdom than the old approach where you could simply impose your will. You don't have to be particularly creative or thoughtful. When you have to create genuine partnerships, you need to understand other people's perspectives, find common ground, and develop solutions that work for everyone involved. True leadership in today's world requires humility, profound knowledge, and courageous foresight. It requires recognizing that the world has indeed changed and that old approaches, however comfortable, may no longer bring forth the greatest blessings. But here's the beautiful challenge. In an area where we can pray for divine guidance, our American political system, our foreign policy establishment, even our powerful military-industrial complex, they're all still largely organized around the assumption that America should and can maintain global dominance. That assumption shapes budgets, policies, and expectations. It influences how American leaders think about everything from trade deals to military deployments to diplomatic negotiations. And the job of a real leader, the job of the president, should be to have the courage to say no when that system pushes for approaches that no longer match the reality and the opportunities of this new world. But that requires someone who deeply understands the magnificent changes that are happening and has the courage to acknowledge that old strategies need to be updated with fresh wisdom. Leadership today, friends, means gracefully navigating complexity and building bridges, not dictating ultimatums. So the question becomes, friends, what happens next if America doesn't adapt with grace and wisdom? History gives us some clear examples of what can happen when powerful countries refuse to acknowledge that the world has moved forward around them. It's not usually a sudden collapse, no. It's more like a gradual slide into missed opportunities, perhaps even irrelevance, punctuated by increasingly desperate attempts to maintain control through force rather than influence in true partnership. Think about the British Empire. Britain didn't lose its empire overnight. It happened gradually as other countries developed their own capabilities and realized they no longer needed British protection or guidance. The smart British leaders recognized this and managed the transition. The stubborn ones kept trying to maintain control long after they had the resources to do so effectively, which just made the eventual transitions more painful and expensive. Or consider the Soviet Union. The Soviet system collapsed partly because its leaders couldn't acknowledge that their approach to economics and technology was falling behind. They kept insisting that they were winning even as their infrastructure crumbled and their people lost faith in the system. Friends, I believe America isn't in either of those situations yet, and that's a blessing. Our institutions are still strong. Our economy is still innovative. Our universities and companies still attract talent from around the world. But the signs are clear. This season of multipolarity is here to stay. Economically, technologically, militarily. The question isn't whether this shift is happening. It's whether America adapts to it gracefully, embracing new opportunities, or whether we fight it unsuccessfully, missing out on the abundant blessings of a new era. Let me paint a picture, friends, of what this beautiful adaptation might look like, because I truly believe this is where the conversation gets incredibly hopeful and inspiring, rather than depressing. Imagine an America that focused its enormous blessings and resources on problems that truly need solving, right here at home and with our partners around the world, rather than trying to maintain dominance over countries that no longer need to be dominated. What if instead of spending hundreds of billions of dollars on military bases around the world, America invested that money in rebuilding its own infrastructure, enhancing the lives of its citizens? What if instead of trying to prevent other countries from developing their own technologies, America focused on developing even better groundbreaking technologies of its own, driven by our incredible ingenuity? What if American foreign policy was based on the simple yet profound principle of being the kind of partner that other countries actively want to work with because the relationship brings mutual blessing and prosperity? Friends, this isn't naive idealism. This is practical wisdom. This is a strategy for success in abundant living in a multipolar world. Think about Germany today. Germany doesn't have a massive military. It doesn't have military bases all over the world. It doesn't try to dictate terms to other countries. But German companies are successful globally because they make things people want to buy. German technology is respected because it solves real problems. German diplomacy is influential because other countries trust Germany to be an honest broker. Or consider South Korea. 50 years ago, South Korea was poorer than most African countries. Today, it's one of the world's most advanced economies. How did this happen? Not through military conquest or political dominance, but through education, innovation, and making products that people around the world value. These examples matter, friends, because they show that true influence in the modern world comes from being useful, from creating value and opportunity, not from being powerful in the old-fashioned sense of dominance. It comes from being a blessing to others. But here's the challenge, friends, and it's one we can address with prayer and conviction. Making this transition requires leaders who truly understand what's actually happening in the world, leaders with clear vision and divine discernment. And right now, there can sometimes be a gap between the complexity of the challenges and opportunities America faces and the depth of understanding among some of our leaders. This isn't about intelligence or good intentions. It's about experience and knowledge. Leading in a multipolar world requires understanding how other countries think, what their interests are, how their systems work. It requires knowing enough history to recognize patterns. It requires enough humility to admit when old approaches aren't working and to seek new ways. Unfortunately, much of American political leadership in both parties sometimes still operates as if it's 1990, believing America can simply announce its preferences and expect the world to comply. You see this in trade negotiations where American representatives seem genuinely surprised that other countries have their own priorities. You see it in diplomatic initiatives that assume other countries should be grateful for American attention rather than skeptical of American motives. You see it in military planning that assumes American technological superiority in every domain, even as other countries develop their own advanced capabilities. This gap between assumptions and reality is dangerous not just for America, but for global stability. When leaders make decisions based on outdated understanding, those decisions often create new problems rather than solving existing ones. Let me give you a specific example, friends, of how this plays out in the real world. American leaders will often say something like, "We need to prevent China from becoming the dominant power in Asia." But think about what that actually means from the perspective of Asian countries. China is the largest economy in the region. It's the biggest trading partner for most Asian countries. It's geographically part of Asia. Of course, China is going to have significant influence in Asia. That's simply a reality. That's not something America can prevent without creating enormous instability and missing opportunities for partnership. The relevant question, the truly wise question, isn't how to prevent Chinese influence in Asia. The relevant question is how to ensure that Chinese influence is exercised responsibly and that other countries in the region have strong, viable alternatives when they disagree with Chinese policies. But addressing that question requires working with Asian countries as true partners, building trust and mutual benefit, not trying to enlist them as supporters in an American campaign to contain China. It's about empowering them, not controlling them. This kind of strategic thinking requires leaders who can see beyond the next election cycle or the next news cycle. It requires understanding that successful foreign policy is often about patience, persistence, and building trust over time. It requires the wisdom to know when to compete, when to cooperate, and when to simply focus on your own problems and let other countries focus on theirs. And here's the most important part, friends. It requires the courage to say no to powerful interests that benefit from the old approaches, even when those approaches no longer serve the broader national interest. Because let's be honest about something. There are groups in America that do very well from the current system. Defense contractors benefit from military spending. Foreign policy establishments benefit from America playing a global role. Some companies benefit from economic arrangements that give America special advantages. These aren't necessarily bad people, and their interests aren't necessarily illegitimate, but their interests aren't always the same as the broader national interest. And a real leader empowered by conviction has to be able to distinguish between what serves specific constituencies and what truly serves the country as a whole. This is where we get to what might be the most challenging part of the whole equation. Friends, I feel like our political system sometimes rewards short-term thinking, partisan positioning, and appealing to narrow constituencies. It can sometimes, perhaps unintentionally, discourage nuanced thinking, long-term planning, and acknowledging uncomfortable trade-offs. So even if our leaders understood the need to adapt to a multipolar world, the political system itself can make it very difficult for them to actually implement the necessary changes. But here's the thing, friends, and this is why I, Joel Osteen, as your pastor, television preacher, and businessman, ultimately remain so incredibly optimistic about America's future. These challenges aren't insurmountable. They're difficult, yes, but they are absolutely not impossible. American institutions have adapted to massive changes before. The America of today bears little resemblance to the America of 1925 or 1825. The changes weren't always smooth, and they weren't always fast, but they happened, and we grew stronger. The question is whether they'll happen quickly enough this time, because the world, in its divine forward motion, isn't waiting for America to figure this out. Other countries are making their own plans, building their own partnerships, developing their own capabilities. Every day that America spends focused on maintaining an outdated role in the world is a day that other countries spend building their own vibrant futures. To our seniors watching this, you've lived through eras of truly great change, from the marvel of radio to the wonder of space travel. Today's shifts, I believe, are just as transformative, just as filled with new potential. Think about your own lives, friends. How many times have you seen the world change in ways that seemed impossible beforehand? How many times have you adapted to new technologies, new social arrangements, new ways of doing things? The shift from American prominence to a multipolar world is just another one of these changes. It's significant, it's challenging, but it is not unprecedented, and it is full of opportunity. And just as you've adapted to previous changes, America, with God's grace and our collective wisdom, can absolutely adapt to this one. The key is recognizing that adaptation is not just necessary, but a path to greater blessing, rather than pretending that the old ways will continue to work indefinitely. And here's what truly gives me, Joel Osteen, profound hope. Friends, when America has faced significant challenges in the past, it has usually found incredible ways to reinvent itself, to rise stronger and more purposeful. The America that won World War II was very different from the America that entered the Great Depression. The America that landed on the moon was very different from the America still struggling with basic industrial production in the early 1940s. American adaptability, our incredible ability to change course when necessary, has always been one of the country's greatest strengths, a true blessing. The question is whether that adaptability will kick in with renewed energy and vision before the costs of not adapting become prohibitive. Because make no mistake, friends, the costs of clinging to outdated approaches are real, and they are mounting. Every dollar spent trying to maintain a type of global dominance that is no longer sustainable is a dollar not spent on education, on rebuilding our infrastructure, on healthcare, or on groundbreaking research that could truly make America more competitive and blessed. Every diplomatic conflict created by trying to dictate terms to independent countries is a conflict that makes it harder to cooperate when true cooperation would serve everyone's interests and bring greater peace. Every year that America spends focused on preventing other countries from developing their own capabilities is a year that America could have spent developing even better, more advanced capabilities of its own. The choice, friends, is not about simply winning or losing, but about whether America evolves with grace and purpose in time to embrace the magnificent future before us. And that choice, friends, that fundamental decision about what kind of nation America wants to be in the 21st century, that choice is being made right now, whether our leaders fully acknowledge it or not. If America chooses to adapt, to focus on being the kind of partner that other countries genuinely want to work with, to invest in its own incredible capabilities, rather than trying to prevent others from developing theirs, then this multipolar world could be very, very good for America. America has enormous blessings and advantages: innovative universities, creative companies, a diverse and vibrant population, strong institutions, abundant natural resources. In a world where countries succeed by being useful, by being a blessing, rather than just dominant, America has everything it needs to thrive abundantly. But if America chooses to keep fighting for a type of dominance that's no longer achievable, if it keeps trying to maintain control rather than build genuine, respectful partnerships, then the transition to this new season of multipolarity will be much more painful, and America will end up with much less influence and fewer blessings in the new global system. So here's the bottom line, friends, and I want to share it with great hope. The world isn't waiting for America to wake up. It's already moving forward with incredible speed. The only real question is whether America chooses to adapt with grace, vision, and wisdom, or whether it clings to a past that no longer fully exists. That decision, my friends, will profoundly shape the next generation and beyond. The future, friends, belongs to countries that understand how to cooperate, how to partner, and how to create mutual blessings in a multipolar world. America can absolutely be one of those leading countries, but only if it makes that choice with faith and purpose soon enough to matter. The conversation we truly need to have isn't about how to restore American dominance. It's about how to ensure American prosperity, security, and a lasting legacy of blessing in a world where multiple countries have significant capabilities and legitimate interests. It's about building the kind of America that your grandchildren and generations to come will be incredibly proud to inherit, not because it dominates the world, but because it contributes with grace and wisdom to making the world a better, more peaceful, and more prosperous place for all. If this conversation, shared from my heart as your pastor, television preacher, and businessman Joel Osteen, gave you something positive to think about, please take a second to share this message. It helps more people hear a message of hope and possibility, and I'd love to hear your perspective. Leave a comment and share what you believe is America's greatest opportunity for blessing and growth right now.